If you're new to cruising, or even if you have cruised but don't have a nautical background, you will often come across terms used on ships that you won't hear on dry land. This video will try to explain some of these terms for us landlubbers. Let's begin with directions. To move around in a ship, you will hear terms like port, starboard, forward, aft, etc. Here is an image of a ship with the directions. The back of the ship is the aft, or the stern. The front of the ship is the bow. Aftward, or sternward, means towards the back. Forward means towards the bow. Now, assume you are standing on the ship, looking forward to the bow, or prow. Port and starboard, these are left and right from your point of view. If you find port and starboard a bit confusing, here is an image to remember. Port is to your left, starboard is to your right. Imagine this image and you won't find it hard to recall. Amidships. As it suggests, this means in the middle of the ship. Generally the midpoint between the bow and the stern, but often used these days to refer to the midline, from side to side, which is properly the centre line. Here's a tip for those prone to seasickness. Amidships is the area where you will feel the ship's movement the least. The beam of the ship is its width at its maximum point. Secondly, areas of the ship. The Lido deck, or sometimes just the Lido. This is essentially the main pool and the surrounding area, usually full of recliner chairs, and often with a bar and some food outlets. The Lido deck is pretty well always open to the sky for sunbathing. MDR, main dining room. This is the main restaurant area, often large enough to accommodate most of the passengers at mealtimes. The area where the food is cooked is not a kitchen, it's the galley. The atrium is a large, enclosed area, generally many decks in height, which functions as a sort of central point to the ship. It usually features an impressive staircase, and is surrounded by shops, cafes, and other facilities, particularly the passenger service desk. Poop deck. This is a phrase not often used these days, but you're bound to have heard this one. A poop deck is a raised deck at the rear of a ship, and in older sailing vessels it was the roof of the great cabin where the captain was based. And while we're on the subject, heads is a word sometimes used for toilets on ships, but again this term is not often heard these days. Promenade deck. Strictly speaking, a promenade deck is an open-air deck that runs all the way round a ship, so that you can walk a complete circuit of the vessel. It's often marked out as a jogging or running track. Brig. As well as an old sailing vessel, the brig is the ship's prison, where passengers or crew can be locked up during sailing before being handed to police at the next stop. And yes, most larger cruise ships do have a brig. A tender. A tender is a small boat carried on the ship. Tenders often serve double duty as lifeboats. They are used in ports where there is no deep-water facility that the cruise liner itself can use. In this case, the ship will sit at anchor out in the water, and the tender will carry passengers to shore and back. And this process is called, logically, tendering. There are a few other terms that are neither directions nor ship parts. Pax or PX refers to a passenger. Knot. Ship speeds are rated in knots, and a knot is 1 nautical mile per hour. A nautical mile is 1.15 land miles, or a bit under 2 kilometers. So add 15% to knots to get rough miles per hour, or add 85% to get rough kilometers per hour. Tonnage. This term is often a cause of confusion. The size of a ship is measured by its gross tonnage. Is this measure the weight of the ship? No, it's a derived figure that reflects the internal volume of the ship instead, and has nothing to do with its weight. But not to worry, the higher the gross tonnage figure, the bigger the ship, so you can still use it to compare different vessels. I do have one query that I'd like to ask my viewers. Does anyone know of a special term for going up and down between decks on board? On the old sailing ships, you went on deck to go up, and went below when you left the open deck. But modern cruise ships often have up to 18 passenger decks. I've never heard a special term used for going, say, from deck 12 to deck 11. Does anyone know of a term used by sailors?